you looked into these with the credits, and I was curious about how the twist ending was received in 68. Now,
how'd that go?
A lot of what I found felt to me as though it was studio placed. And in 68, the studios were still going to be very much in control of what was said about their film. So I didn't find any truth in that. Instead, what I found that I thought was interesting was the Hollywood Reporter from 68 and its review and how it approached it. So when I started reading it, I thought, what was the review? Now, I'll say this. To this day, if you go to Rotten Tomatoes, the original film has an approval rating of 88%. Okay. That is with both modern reviews. Roger Ebert re-reviewed it in 2001.
And the original review?
As well as the original review. So it stood the test of time to critics. They say it's a great film. Hollywood Reporter at that time, I was curious. We don't have the internet at that time. We don't have the people who are going to spoil all the twist endings and whatnot.
Right.
How is that going to come across? So this is some of what they said. And the reason this made me think of it, they actually mentioned Lou Wagner as a standout as a teen. That was their own a standout as a troubled teen amongst the apes. They mentioned him.
It's amazing. We look back at those moments.
It looked
and we thought
almost
they were
humorous.
Yeah, we thought they were
forced.
We were sitting there playing for jokes, but it actually
it resonated
hit an
somehow.
audience. Yeah,
and for some reason, I started thinking, okay, did that performance in its own very basic way touch on what they've just had with things like Rebel Without a Cause? The troubled teen that can't connect. Now, that's a little bit removed from when Rebel Without a Cause came out, but is it that same thing that they're looking at? Because something to that critic stood out.
The concept of a troubled teen that can't connect is a universal one, and so it's not something that's new, but it's just us looking at that character.
It felt very dated.
Felt very dated, but to them, it felt very prescient.
Right.
It's happening right now and important to us.
So what they said was, this is the rare film that will transcend all ages and social groupings. They then, in the article itself, had a section called Surprise Ending, which I thought, well, great.
Like, spoiler, quit reading?
Right. So the whole spoiler thing has been there all along. Now, they did not say what it was. This is an exact quote. Ultimately, Heston finds proof of a higher human society and embarks in search of a new Eden and a surprise ending which brutally questions the ability and right of contemporary society to prevail on its current course.
What I want to know is how they define and embark for a new Eden when that just means 3 minutes writing down a damn page. That's all he's doing. How is he looking for a new Eden? Come
that
on.
Was a really complex.
What movie did they watch?
Be a movie viewer. I'd be like, that was awesome. I had a good time. I had to pee 3 times. Like I could not review a movie with that kind of eloquence. I'd be like, it was awesome.
It's obviously their job to look at a film.
They sometimes they want to stay in the studio's good graces potentially.
So, and I'm going to get into what the one criticism of the film is too. You know, it's their job to look at what does this film mean today? What is it saying? And the one criticism was, excuse me, they do. I'm sorry. Let me look at this real quick. It takes too many allegorical meanings. Race relations, war and pacifism, church inquisition, Senate investigation, suppression of thought, sexual myth, the credibility gap, and official statements of position, the selective deductive process of historians, who writes like that, the generation gap, blind allegiance to the status quo, the imperative right of dissent, social structure, and the caste system. Holy crap. We
missed so many things.
But we're geniuses. We were pretty much picking that apart too.
When you break it down minute by minute, that's what you come away with.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. That whole list, they forgot coconut. Eating coconut. That's terrible. But that really is what we came to the conclusion going minute by minute. It was like a cause soup. It was like we threw all the causes in a soup, mix it around, let's pull a line out. Okay, great. Yeah. Don't trust anybody under 30. Let's pick a cause out, that's the way you led me on a leash.
And that's why I put that in there, because as I was reading this, I for a little bit felt guilty. I thought, we've been a little too harsh. We keep picking this film apart until a critic of that era said exactly what it did, that it tried too hard to do too much.
It's like you had a DVD. It's like you put
a little bit. Even though the inclusion...
JJ's over there patting herself on the back to show how smart we are. I just have to remind you that when you pat yourself on the back, you're only 18 inches away from a kick in the butt.
I do have to remind us that he does say in here that they
have feet for hands.
They come across the sexual myth, which if there is one criticism I think the three of us would agree with, is for all the things they talked about in this film, the treatment of women is horrific.
Yeah.
They are nothing but meat. They're stupid. Even the smartest one is pushed aside. The only one that we know was supposed to be a breeder, and she died. And the second one that we ever deal with never speaks a word.
They try to move it forward a little bit.
Yes.
Right? But they never actually deliver on any of those moments. I mean...
Right. Is that because they haven't... I don't know when... I can't think of what year the women's lib movement started in the 60s. But... have they not had enough discussions to challenge their own thought as men writing this?
I'm wondering.
And therefore, do they not know that they need?
There are only so many.
To go so far.
Only so many conventions they can challenge. Are we going to convention? Are we going to challenge?
Well, apparently not, though, because this is 15 things here.
What? And is that the person who's reading everything they want into it versus the writer who said, no, the bird wasn't supposed to be white because it's white and peace and everything. No, it's because when I was sitting there and writing it, there was a white bird outside my window.
Right.
I think it was the complexity of having so many messages. They couldn't focus on one message. They'd try and shoehorn all these ideas into this one script and wanted to touch on things, but still couldn't move past its own flaws.
Well, I think, too, when you get into it and you have a couple of screenwriters that are, one has been blacklisted by Hollywood, and the other is one of the great screenwriters in Serling who love to tackle social problems.
Social issues, yeah.
You put those two together, and what do they want to do? They want to put everything in here. You hope you get all of it out. And maybe they tried for too much.
Well, I didn't even know this till I read Kim Hunter's bio on Wikipedia that she had been blacklisted for communist activities in the 50s.
Excuse me while I drink my martini. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, no, she'd been blacklisted in the 1950s from her from suspected communist activity and supporters. Yeah, so she came back to this movie for this.
Just for the brevity of the episode, we're 22 minutes in. I'm going to shift to the next thing because I at least want to give the relevancy of this film being such a classic. It's going to end up on tons of different lists and things. It only won one honorary Academy Award, and that was for John Chambers' makeup. Now, at that time, they didn't give the same kind of...
honorary that year?
It was honorary that year. Right. They don't really give makeup Academy Awards at that time in that manner. Okay. So it was for advancement in... It was nominated for costumes, which it lost to Romeo and Juliet, which was, I'm going to say this wrong, Danilo Donati.
That's just togas.
Then this is the one that's really, really, really wrong. It was nominated for original score. Mm-hmm. And it lost to The Lion and Winter by John Barry. However, it then went on to be recognized by the AFI as the 18th best score ever written in the history of cinema. Because it's so innovative and it's so important to that film.
I agree.
It is incredible, but that one section they put in the DVD menu, I want to murder somebody anytime I hear it.
I know that if you ever piss me off, I'm just going to feed it into it.
I mean, Richard...
Hang on. You take the low.
Phenomena.
I couldn't even plan that. Damn, that was good, Richard.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Once you came onto the podcast, we actually became funny. Thank you.
Hey.
Zing.
So, I'm gonna take the podcast and we're gonna end it on this one.
Because we've got one more day to go.
We got 2 seconds of film tomorrow. What we're gonna do tomorrow is we're gonna
2 seconds.
2 seconds. We have to be fair.
Wait,
what?
I gotta watch this.
He still wants to. What other credits?
I'm still in the credits.
Oh, sorry. He still wants to talk about people. Who you want to talk about?
No, I have nobody to talk about.
He actually wants to watch
those 2 seconds are. Like I'm watching.
It's okay. Listen, the end 2 seconds
You'll find
are simply
out tomorrow what those 2 seconds
Hold my hand. Okay.
It'll be okay.
All right, we can do it.
I want you to listen to me. Tomorrow, it's simply 2 seconds of a credit, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about what we're going to do with Beneath the Planet of the Apes. We're going to kind of give people...
There's something beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
We're holding hands.
So
there'll be a place under this.
Here's where I'm going to end this.
There's a place somewhere,
a place for us. Peace and quiet and open air. Oh my God, West Side Story Minute. Yes. Woo!
I like to live in America. Everything good in America. I like to.
It is off the rails, but people love it.
Everything good in America.
Okay, so the final thing I'm going to say, Sean, you've now seen this film all the way through.
Wait, I have 2 seconds ago.
Shut up. We're not doing that tomorrow. We're doing it today. So you've seen it. What do you think?
I enjoyed it. It's a product of its time with its pacing. It could definitely do with about 15 minutes taken out of walking.
Of walking, but add in 15 minutes of deeper story, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, it suffers a little bit of Lord of the Rings of we're walking and when we're walking and we're walking.
Damn you, I like my walking shots.
I know. I don't have a problem with walking shots. I have a problem when it's walking shots for half an hour.
So those are the things that you think. Do you have a favorite part? In watching it minute by minute, is there something you latch onto and you kind of it resonates within you?
I think I actually do like the part when Taylor speaks for the first time. He's actually able to speak in front of everybody, and they figure out that this is not the thing that they thought it was. When it resets the expectations of everybody in the movie. Okay,
so Richard, you've seen the film before. Is there anything that now watching 2/3 of a film with us minute by minute that now sticks out to you?
So as a kid growing up watching for the first time, I was kind of impressed by the sci-fi aspect, like just the grand nature of it, and kind of breaking it down a little bit more. I got to pay a little more attention to the acting and what the characters were saying. Like it wasn't breaking down minute by minute, really kind of gave me a perspective on that particular era.
So, and I'm going to throw this in. Having seen this thing countless times, showing it to my child, showing it to all these people.
How many times would you think you've said you've seen this movie?
It's not like Star Wars.
Star Wars. Yeah.
Well, Star Wars, because for me, being a child of that era, it hit, and I was able with VHS to watch it hundreds of times. Planet of the Apes, I've seen 50, 60 times easily and watched it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I played with those dolls. Until Star Wars came, this was my world. I loved it.
Like entirety, not like just kind of randomly caught it on Stars, and I caught 20 minutes, and I had to go do something else. Like watched it consecutively,
it's on
many times.
It was one of those that when my wife and I got married, I mean, there were a few films. She was not raised. She loves movies. She was not raised to love them the way I was. And there was one thing I said, you have to watch, and I don't want to hear your belly ache, and you have to see Planet of the Apes. She looked at me after it was over and said, "Okay, I'm done with that. Can we move on?" And she's never watched the rest of them. She doesn't want. It's not her thing. But to me, it was. I loved them so much that I recall, and JG, you grew up in this area like I did, that I think it was Channel 8 used to have a Apes Week. Oh, did you grow up here too? I'm sorry, I don't mean to exclude. You may know this too.
JG grew up in the Dallas area.
They had an Apes Week, and it would be that they showed all. Do you remember that at all? Okay, she didn't remember it. But I would
UHF channel.
I would literally run home because we didn't have things to record.
So you want to be there to watch it when
wanted
it
to
was
see
on.
them. And I loved it. I remember that every year they would do Apes Week.
So, just to kind of bring it back to Zeus Comics, which we're hosting right now, there was a book called 365 Days of DC Comics. And it was a day by day of what happened at the beginning of DC Comics. And one of the stats, and this was stats early on, is the publishers of comic books noticed their sales would go up anytime there was an ape on the cover.
Really?
Yes.
Is that when they made that ape, the DC Apes or whatever?
They did, like about 15 years ago, they did an event called Jail Ape. Or,
turned everybody into a monkey.
But they noticed, which is why King Kong and Planet of the Apes did so well, they noticed a spike in circulation anytime they had a monkey on the cover.
Huh. As you said that, I love Planet of the Apes, I love Jaws, I love Star Wars. So I got 2 out of the 3 had animals, but I don't know what it was. I don't know why I loved it so much, but I will say this. I actually loved the fact that you guys found all the inconsistencies that I never saw before, because I went into it in a very romanticized way. I loved it. It was perfect to me. But now as I break it apart, I kind of like it more because it's not perfect. It's really kind of wrong in some places. It's flat in places. People talk too much in places. People don't talk enough in places. That's what I appreciated out of watching it minute by minute. I really did.
There's a internet comedian named ProZD who
named what?
PROZD. ProZD.
Okay. All right.
That what you were thinking about, where you see it and you're thinking everybody's gonna love it, and then all of a sudden they start seeing the flaws in it that you never saw. He had a little video where it's like, I'm gonna show somebody my favorite internet video of all time. And they start watching it, and you can see him going, all right, the funny part, here. And they cut to the other guy, and he's not laughing. And they cut back to him, and he goes, all right, why is he not laughing? Let me see how much longer is left in the video. And they cut to it, and it says, infinity is left.
So it's kind of like you showing Richard the vomiting video.
No. no.